Okay, welcome to the Chris Hall NDIS podcast. And today I have a wonderful guest, Annette Andersen, with me. Now, I've followed Annette on LinkedIn on her journey of her and her son for many months now. And Annette is a wonderful technologist and access innovator. And she set up a company actually with her son called AxAI. And it's using artificial intelligence to do a variety of things, whether it be create human-like avatars of Axel, her son, so we can interact with Axel. It's doing other tech solutions for NDIS providers. And also Annette has been doing some recent innovations with Brendon Grail, who is a veteran in the NDIS and used to be the former CEO of my plan manager, who we've had on the podcast before. So today, I'm just going to ask Annette a bunch of questions. We're probably going to get super geeky. We're going to get heartfelt. We're going to talk about advocacy, the whole lot. So Annette, thank you for being the human that you are, and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
And by the way, for those that have seen the last podcast episode, you're probably used to my curls, and I've had it all chopped off. So yes, it's true. I've had a haircut. So things have changed on my side. So Annette, I'm very moved by your journey, both as a mother, as an advocate, as a technologist. Now, when it comes to you and your son, Axel, what inspired you to set up AxAI? You know, how did your personal journey for both Axel and you as a mother shape the formation of this company?
I guess the answer is, adversity and going through some really difficult times with Axel, which we're still going through. We've got ups and downs, but I realised that I was like the interpreter for all his needs, and that's very, very difficult. It's his needs are so variable, and it can be so confusing. And we went through a terrible period last year where we moved, he disintegrated, and nobody could work out what was wrong. I kept getting told it's behaviours, he needs all these drugs, there's nothing wrong with him, it's mental health. And then his feet started getting inflamed, and he just continued to deteriorate. He didn't sleep. And eventually I was desperate. Nobody seemed to offer any help. And I went into ChatGPT and started, really trying to work out what was wrong. And it prompted me with, different ideas and started talking about inflammation and iron levels. And then I suddenly remembered, wait a sec, he was anemic before, several years ago, and he had these behaviours.
Okay.
And from there, like, it's not a matter of ChatGPT didn't diagnose him or anything, but from there I went back to the doctor and I said, hey, could it be iron levels? Can we get all this tested? We got it tested. He was low on iron. We got him on iron tablets. 48 hours later, this severe insomnia, which was in turn then creating almost like psychotic episodes because he was not sleeping, it was resolved.
Wow.
And it was like mind-blowing. And then all the inflammation came down and he started improving. And I really realised that, all this information that we've got from people like Axel just isn't used properly. And because of the communication deficits and the way that it's expressed with often these severe behaviours, it's so open to misinterpretation.
Very much so. Yeah.
And from there, what happens? What happens if Axel doesn't get diagnosed? What happens if he gets chemical restraint and then he has a reaction? I knew from this research that I'd done around that time, which was like desperate research. I was desperate. It was a really desperate time that, things like giving chemical restraints like risperidone and antipsychotics when someone is low in iron is a very high risk for something called neuroleptic malignant syndrome, where you can basically become, you can die.
Wow.
Like in a really serious, terrible way. And I was just like, how close did my son, and they were trying chemical restraints around that time because it was just so desperate. How close, could he have come to death? How I could have given up. I've just been through another scenario, just like that. We're virtually just coming to the other side of it. But yeah, I really realised the power of AI, and I'd been, I had an IT career in my 20s before having children, and I thought I'm going to go back to uni and upgrade my IT skills and spend 6 months doing that. And I've just, been full on doing AI assisted development for about 6 months now, and it's just mind blowing. Just that side of it.
It really is.
This whole podcast about. I'm excited.
Well, there's almost no point. There's almost no point going back to uni right now because it's moving so quick. You can learn more by just doing it. And again, just for the benefit of the audience, Axel suffers from a condition called man on fire syndrome, right? Which can you pronounce the proper medical name for it? Because I find it difficult to. Erythromelalgia. I can't say it properly.
Yeah, erythromelalgia, something like that. The specialist corrects me every time I'm there. I just go for man on fire syndrome when I'm talking about it, because that is literally what it is. And we've just been through the most horrendous, probably 2 or 3 weeks with a severe flare up of it. It is literally man on fire syndrome, and it's horrible. I think we're on the other side of it. Thank goodness.
But it goes to show, like, again, whether it be an NDIS provider or a parent or an advocate for someone or a person with disability yourself, everything you just said there, it's so crucial to have that holistic understanding. Because like we can all go to our GP and say, I've got a cold, what can you do for it? Take some cold and flu. It's addressing the symptoms, right? But we're so often missing what's the underlying cause, and the connection of that dot you were able to make as a mother, as an advocate for your son, and also AI empowered. And you go, wait a minute, there's a connection here. There's a connection to man on fire syndrome with iron levels, and he's been anemic. Oh, wait a minute, typically used drug for quote unquote behaviors. And I say quote unquote because it's not, he's in agony, right? He's in pain, he's suffering, so like you've got to connect that dot, because otherwise you just go in a spiral that can turn into a very dark place.
And the whole thing is so fragmented. We've got, all these, we've got reports written, we've got, some of them are like 100 pages long. We've got support workers who are coming in. I mean, we've got people who might just be on for one shift or a short period of time, who don't go and read meal plans and then feed someone they shouldn't feed them something.
Right.
There's a place there for AI straight away. You photograph everything, and I've got Axel's got his own app, obviously. We photograph everything. Every activity is recorded. Every meal is photographed. Everything. And then what will happen when I get around to it, everything will be AI'd. So there will be no making mistakes. There will be no food that he shouldn't get. We can adjust the diet as we need, because this is a big problem that I've faced with a whole team of workers, is that, things go off and then you adjust things, you restrict diets to try and eliminate, and someone doesn't realise that that's been done, or they forget it's been done, and then next thing is on it. Whereas if you're just saying, take a photograph of every meal, and then the AI goes immediately, you can't feed him that.
Got it.
Or it produces the meal plan or whatever. We've got limited.
Brilliant. That's a brilliant thought. I love that thought, by the way, because I mean, for example, like at Steadway, my own business, we're implementing AI solutions that are properly managed in terms of security and large language model based. And we will en masse review the shift notes, for example, for all of our clients. And then we'll use it with various prompts to go, tell me where there are concerning patterns. And we've got all these nuances. And so what we can do is we can take an unbearably large volume of data that would be impossible to kind of read for every Monday morning meeting, because it's just too many shifts, too many things, and it's condensed down. So that's how we were addressing it from a language perspective. But I love that's so innovative what you just said, because you're right. The AIs now can recognize pictures and images and what's in a meal. That's fantastic thinking. I love that.
And the other thing here is we've got to remember is all these reports, all these shift notes, they're the voice of people like Axel. And unfortunately, that voice can get misinterpreted. And Axel did spend some 2 years in residential care. His initial NDIS plan was extremely underfunded. His needs are extremely high. During that time, you know, the types of support that is in there, it's a very clinical sort of place. And you know, the people aren't really connected in with him. It's not like mum. And things that Axel would say things, and this is before he got diagnosed with man on fire syndrome, he would say things that I knew all the time, like that didn't make sense, like fire, ants, I got fright. But I got fright got turned into I want to fight.
Oh, wow.
And so instead of me sitting there, I see my son, I got fright, fire, ants, and I was trying to tell the doctors and they weren't sure about it. Then that got morphed into this, I want to fight, and he's got aggressive behaviours, and it could quickly roll off from that. Now, what I've come to realise and looking at studies is that what precedes all of this, and what I now know is that man on fire syndrome, a lot of these pain conditions are linked into autonomic dysfunction.
Okay.
So straight away, you've got something to work with. You've got biosignals. You've got, you know, heart rate variability. You've got skin temperature. You've got all sorts of things, all sorts of data that we could be collecting. And instead of this, you know, what we see as behaviour.
Yes.
And a worker maybe interpreting that as, oh, I want to fight behaviour. We actually see all these heart rate variability things going off, and then the behaviour, and we can start to understand what is behind it. Yes. I know there's actually there was a thing done recently where they're actually detecting bipolar mood swings with just an ordinary Fitbit watch and machine learning. So all of these things are there, but it's just we've got to bring it all together.
I agree.
And that together, because at the moment we've got all this defragmentation. We go and see a therapist and a report's written, but the support person may never look at it. They might read it once. You know, it's impossible to do anything. There's all sorts of, Axel could be having all these feelings of, you know, faintness, or could be getting hot. Nobody knows about it. Yes. He can't communicate it. We need to bring all this together, and then we will Axel will have a real voice. You know, the technology's there. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to be getting together a movement, a group of people who are all inspired to make a difference, and get this stuff off the ground, you know?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of the things you're describing are obviously with Axel, he has a more complex case, right? But what it's doing is it's shining the light on some of the darker corners where you go, well, what if we have this data input here and this instead of that? I mean, if we just, for a moment, intellectually, for an exercise, we put aside those extra inputs you just said, just focus on shift notes for a second.
Yes.
We know that we should, in practice, be doing good, factually based, non-opinions, not subjective. It's descriptive, it's factual, all that objectivity stuff. That's what should be happening. But you're making a very good point that if you put garbage in, you get garbage out in terms of an AI solution. You know what I mean? If you do crap shift notes, basically,
Yeah,
you would get a crap summary, right?
And here's another idea,
Yeah,
Chris. While we're producing
yeah,
ideas, there's AI models out there to scan people's faces for moods. So
yes, yes,
Axel's I've come across with Axel an app that you can scan to get, and it will detect pain from
right.
the face. We can use all these sorts
So
of things.
powerful.
You
Yeah.
got someone there who's shouldn't be doing support, and there's a few of them, and they can describe Axel's mood as aggressive or whatever. Someone else might come along and say, no, he's sad, but you actually got AI to scan it. It's going to get the same result every time. It's going to be
Arguably more consistent. Yeah, exactly. No, he's in agony right now. It's none of those things, for example, right?
exactly.
Wow.
You record. This is what we record. We record activities.
Yeah.
His mood, which will need to be eventually transferred to an AI generated mood. The support person is with the geo coordinates. You can start bringing in then data, and this is really important data for people like Axel who are highly sensitive, is humidity, the current temperature outside, air pressures. When Axel has an unexplained escalation of what looks like behavior all of a sudden, and he's been well, we're almost certain there's a storm coming.
Wow.
He can absolutely detect it, and then you go and have a look into this, and there's actually something called meteoropathy that people live with, and it
Yeah.
causes them severe pain. It's related to vagus nerve, and very interesting.
It's
Very interesting.
fascinating.
It could be recording all that information could be used to predict
Yes.
what's going to happen next.
It makes me think of, say, for example, specialist disability accommodation, SDA, right? So some of the great SDA providers have got essentially smart homes, right? You can do voice activated blinds to come down the window and, like, hey, Google, switch the lights on. And that's all very well and good. And that is excellent. But it makes me think about a future as well that you're kind of describing where, I'll be technical here for a second. You've got APIs and you've got various systems and meshes and all this kind of stuff. So imagine a world where, imagine if you had an incredible SDA provider that says, here's the sensors that we've got in the home, and we're going to enable an API connection to whatever the thing is you're describing to connect in the inputs. And I can imagine, like, the way that good cloud-based software goes is that some of the more enlightened things, they go, this is our core function. Like, we've got a great phone system called AirCall, and it's amazing. You can go plug, 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 and like plug things into it, right? So in my opinion, I reckon that these AI tools that will be very successful, you need to create these ideas of central hubs, right, of a function. And then that function, if you can go clock, 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 click and plug these things in as inputs and also outputs, then I feel like that's how you create this type of vision. Also, of course, there's an obvious thing here, which is rostering and administrational systems. So, the system that you have your shifts in and your shift notes and all of that stuff. Like, I think increasingly that's where, I think, in my opinion, a good portion of that should ideally sit. But it's going to be what do you think of that? Like, the system that the provider uses, ideally, I know you'll have an opinion as a mother and as an advocate as well. You'll go, oh, I'll build it myself, which I love that passion. But also for like the bulk side of the providers across Australia, what do you think of that idea that if we just get the rostering systems or so bloody good that they can also click, add things in? What do you reckon?
Well,
What's the way forward?
I think this is part of what we want to do with DSX, which we haven't sort of spoken about yet, but that's definitely part of the vision, is getting the providers, participants, frontline workers together and actually saying, well, what is it we need to make support in the future as good as we can.
Yes.
and work it out, and let's get together and let's empower some participants with technology, with AI assisted development. Let's just get together and let's build this thing.
Let's talk about that for a sec. So DSX is the Disability Services Exchange. It's a new organization that you and Brendon Grail have recently launched, right? So we're in July 2025 now. I think it was last month or very recently you did. So tell me, what's the objective and the vision of DSX? Because we've got lots of amazing conversation here. It's like, what is the mission and the vision of that?
I think there's a few different aspects of it. There's a part with providers who want to get together and as a group be able to identify who is a good provider, who's an ethical provider, and have everyone being very transparent about that, so participants know who can I trust to go to, because let's face it, there's been some really bad things happen. Big providers, smaller providers, registered, unregistered. Who can you trust? Some of these people are trusted with providing homes for people with a disability, and suddenly they're out of a home. This is part of the vision. The other part of the vision is we've got some amazing participants out there. We've got, amazing ideas, but people, haven't got the ability to get the tools together they need to develop things. I've talked to so many participants who have got so many amazing ideas, but how do we all do it, when we're all, not working
Splintered
together?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
is it correct as well? Sorry to interrupt. Is it correct as well that DSX is trying to, within that kind of that first point of knowing who the good providers are, is it correct you want to do some kind of self-benchmarking tools?
Yeah, that's part of the vision.
Yeah. Nice.
And being able to have somewhere for participants to go to, see who is ethical, who follows this whole benchmarking. And the other thing is that is of concern is the difficulties that are faced by smaller providers, keeping up with all the compliance and different regulations and that. The concern is that if small providers continue to get pushed out, and there's a lot of businesses unfortunately going out of business, that's not good for participants. This idea that we've got a flourishing market of diverse offerings, and participants have got choice and control, and at the same time, they know they can go to that provider and they follow certain guidelines, etc. I think that's great, and that's part of what we hope to achieve, and at the same time being able to work together to create new systems, whether they're developed in-house or designed in-house, and then we get them developed. It doesn't matter. What needs to happen though is we need to all get people together. We need to start empowering participants. Even on the participant side, even the idea of having a virtual place to come and work and learn from each other, having those tools there, really, really good AI tools like Claude Code, and I'm actually developing my own platform at the moment, which I hope we'll be able to collaborate with various AI models and get participants and actually develop some of these apps. That's sort of the first thing I'm going for is that. platform to develop from collaboratively with
Oh,
AI.
wow. Okay.
And yeah, so I've got what I've got going is like part of it is like a huddle. Like, so if agile development, you'll have that huddle, but in my huddles, you've got different stakeholders involved, but you've also got various AI models, and from there it will utilize like different frameworks for AI and security, etc. And there was one good thing about going back to uni was that I sort of got back on back up to scratch with all the different frameworks that are around, which has changed a lot in the different standards and that, and being able to actually have that framework within there to work off, and then create specifications with the stakeholders there, and the AI. We're all together in that huddle and actually spec it out. And I've spent the last 6 months like really honing in on accelerated AI development and working out methodology behind it. And what I'm actually doing now is I'm building, because it's so fast, I'm building the user interface first. So my sort of vision is, we'll get in there with the stakeholders, some participants who are helping with design, development, testing, whatever, and we'll build this UI the way we want, and then we develop the back end.
That's a fascinating vision. I mean, I get that vision. I back in my 20s, I was a Accenture consultant. So I used to do, we talk methodologies and SAP and all this kind of stuff. And it was all about requirements gathering and implementing functional designs and all that stuff, right? So I think what you're describing there is, for the benefit of the audience that may or may not understand this stuff, is it kind of like is your idea that when you go to ChatGPT, it's a chat interface, right? So is the idea through DSX that you can have thousands of providers, thousands of participants interacting essentially with the chat interface, but you're saying, hey, we're trying to build X, we're trying to build Y, what's your input? And you get the back and forth. And then basically through this user interface, you're collecting all of these thousands of inputs, and then it comes into this central thought knowledge base where you it's almost like giving birth to a new technical baby. Like, it has all of these perspectives. Is that the vision there? And if it applies, you apply your framework and methodology behind that within that gestational soup of idea and creativity.
Exactly. And we give it all the user stories, and then I go, instead of what I'm doing at the moment, because my methodology at the moment pretty much involves the latest Gemini 2.5 Google AI model as the lead architect, and he's very arrogant. Lead architect. And I got Claude Code, right? I got Claude Code sitting on the server. And so Gemini yells at Claude Code, I copy paste across, they have a bit of an argument, Claude Code goes away and does all the work, and then back and forth, and I take a code review at Gemini every so often. That will all change. And I've developed the engine. I've got all the ideas of sort of prototyped and verified that they will work. Instead of having just Gemini and Claude Code, I'll be able to have Gemini 2.5 Flash, for example, which is very cost-effective AI and very good at coding. I'll be able to choose that, for example. There's a whole lot of different AI roles that
you're describing agents there. You kind of describe, again, for the benefit of the audience, some people may have heard this idea of agentic AI, so that means having an agent, right? So it's kind of like saying, I, as Chris, can put on, I don't know, my marketing hat, and Annette can put on her operations hat, and we have the role of a particular focus. So one's coding, one's giving the requirements, and you interact with each other. So the idea that you're describing there is to create the creative destruction process and all that stuff. We got, good point, but what about this, etc. Yeah,
exactly. So the architect, which might be assigned one model, and then there'll be coders, and then there'll be humans as well, all in that group, fleshing it out, and then when we're ready to go, rather than copy paste back and forth, it's all just it's got all the frameworks within the system. It's using a RAG pipeline to have this as in knowledge, in context.
Yes.
And we can just go through, and it's got all the code in context. It can just go through and develop the whole thing. And what I've actually been able to get it to do, and I'm using containers. I'm containerizing the actual app itself, is that it can actually go and add its own features,
right,
and debug itself.
Yes,
which
that's
is
amazing.
Really interesting. So when we go and repeat this, and when it's finished, it will start creating these apps itself from the help from the users.
Yes.
And they'll be able to debug themselves too. So I'll be able to have participants. This is my grand plan. I'll be able to have participants say, "Hey, you app, I don't like this. This is wrong," and it'll go and fix itself.
I mean, that's quite the vision. I love it. And again, let's just for the benefit of some people that might not be quite as technical as us, right? What we're trying to say here is this idea of everyone gets to have an input, whether it be a participant, a provider, some kind of subject matter expert. You can interact with the AI, and then it can code itself, essentially. That's what we're saying. I suppose one of the things that's necessary within that is that I used to be a business coach for 5 years in the NDIS before my own business. And what I know is that there's not one single person that understands the whole NDIS, right? So like you've got people that understand microcosms of it, and then you'll have different opinions of that. And sure, you've got some facts and figures, and you've got the practice standards, but even an auditor will go, oh yeah, they've got section 2.1.7. This means we need to check this, but that doesn't always happen on every audit. Like there's a lot of variability. So I suppose that idea of the architect and the includer and the excluder of questions and comments, that needs to be a very astute architect, whether that be digital or a human, because it is necessary. Tell me if you agree with this. I feel like it's necessary to sometimes exclude some of the opinions of even providers because they might have it wrong, right? Because there's not one expert on the whole thing. Do you see what I mean? Like we can't verbatim just take every single requirement. We have to go, well, even from participants, it might, well, I love the idea, but then if we did that, we'll be going against the practice standards, or we wouldn't be able to claim your kilometers, or there could be implications for if we just take what you're asking for verbatim and implement it, it breaks everything.
And I think
kind of thing.
That you brought up a good point, and I think I need to create another model that is fine-tuned around NDIS legislation, and this is turning into a great podcast. I'm getting ideas. Fine-tuned around NDIS legislation and compliance, etc. That needs to be, be able to be plugged into the huddle, so that when we go and develop the ideas and work the specs, that's taken into consideration, not just AI frameworks and security manuals and stuff like that.
Yes. So what's the everything you're describing here? Is this a bit of a combination of what your vision is for AxAI, or are you describing what the DSX wants to do there, or a bit of both? Like, what's the delineation between the two organizations?
So this is an AxAI product.
Okay, cool.
We're calling it Chimera is the name of it. That Google came up with that. Google Gemini came up with that and had a bit of an argument with it, but it won over. That's owned by AxAI, but it's something that I want to make available through DSX and help sort of develop the idea in DSX and allow participants to use it, etc. And just work it from there. I mean, I think we need to look at everything. Like there's and Guy Turnbull talks about this, the mutual benefits of everything. And with this Chimera idea, yes, I put a lot of work into it, but there's a lot of value to me from having different people use it and give feedback and refine that product to something which is, could be incredibly powerful and innovative. And that's the other part of DSX is the whole idea that, it's not about them and us. It's about us and working together to make things better for everybody.
I mean, the vision you just described is so inspiring and insightful. Do you see that as a piece of software that would be an offering essentially for administration and rostering and shift creation and all that stuff with all of this stuff on top of it? Or do you see it as something else that's not within rostering? And do you know what I mean? Like having a shift and you shift notes and all that kind of stuff. Do you see it as a layer on top, or do you see it as a fundamental, client management system, essentially?
You're talking about the Chimera product that I talked about?
Yes.
It's intended to create all of those things, anything you want. That's the idea, is that, if you want to create rostering software, well, we just need to get the right people together and the right AI models and flesh out what it is we want. I see it as an AI accelerated development platform.
I think I get it now. Okay, so it's almost like your development team and your architect in one. So is it about customized pieces for each provider, or is it about a unilateral solution that's better for the whole industry? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could be either, couldn't it?
It could be anything. Well, it could be a participant coming and saying, listen, I've always wanted to create an online business selling maps, for example. I want a website. And that you asked me before off air about my AxAI website, and I need to redo it, and that's the first thing that Chimera is going to be unleashed on. I fully expect it to be able to look at my website as it is a WordPress website, and come up and turn it into a React website very quickly.
Right. Actually, I have a question for you. There's something on the website we talked about off camera, which is really cool. I want to talk about some of the kind of human-like avatars that you've been implementing for yourself, for Axel. So I've seen these online. They're amazing. And so for Axel, sometimes you want to bring his voice to life more in terms of, his own history. And you've actually created a digital avatar for him. Just before we go into that, do you mind me asking, is Axel, is he partially verbal? Or what's the kind of, what can he get out, so to speak, in terms of his communication?
So Axel lives with a severe intellectual disability. And that impacts, what he can actually say, and that his speech is variable. When he's not feeling well, not traveling well, he can speak in sentences. Other times it's just a whisper. Other times there's nothing at all. It's very variable. It's difficult for him to communicate. He understands a lot. So him being able to tell his story without the avatar, and it's not just the use of an avatar. I use AI. I put all of the information into his own AI GPT, and the AI writes the script. The AI knows all about Axel. We've got a personality within the GPT that is, pretty much on par what we believe is Axel's personality, and it spits out scripts for him. I try not to touch them too much at all. Occasionally there's some rude words in there, and occasionally I leave them in there, and then someone goes, Annette, but it's pretty much out of the box. So we've got the scripts. I get those scripts. I use a product called HeyGen that we spoke about earlier. You can put these scripts in there, use photographs of Axel, and then we can generate different things. I think Axel's latest video is he's hanging off a cliff.
Right, so it's something that grabs your attention, right? So again, for the benefit of the audience, to kind of simplify it a little bit, what you do is you're able to put in a script prompt. So you can say these words, but it's Axel's digital avatar that looks like him, and he'll talk, according to the script. That's one way of doing it, which is amazing to bring that to life. But one of the even more groundbreaking things that you're using is an interactive avatar, isn't it? So when you talked about a GPT then, so for those that have heard of Chat GPT, there's something deeper down the rabbit hole called a GPT where you can do this prompt, which you say kind of behave like this, and this is who I am, etc. So you can actually interact. So I think you're alluding to like having what's called a knowledge base, right? And a knowledge base is just a ton of information that you can give whatever the AI tool is, and it allows it to actually interact. So is it correct that even on the website right now, you can have a conversation with Axel as a video avatar, and it's interactive?
That's correct. And that's sort of honed around NDIS legislation. But where I want to take it from then, so that's using HeyGen's sort of standard stuff that they've got for everybody. Where I'd like to go to next, and this would be great to get other participants and that involved in DSX, is let's move on to the next step. Let's do our own avatars. Let's do, we've got 3D avatars we can utilize. Let's have, when you start bringing personal information in here, we start to sort of get into that area of AI ethics and security, location, etc. We need to develop this custom. We can't be using third-party solutions. So I've partially developed something, and I'm busy with Chimera at the moment. But once that's finished, the reason why I wanted to focus on Chimera is because it can help me develop all these other ideas.
Well, yes, indeed, that's your powerhouse. Yeah.
So what I have developed, and the whole idea is to have a whole lot of different knowledge bases, and I've got a mixture of experts type framework that will spin it out to wherever. The one vision of it would be Axel has a planning meeting. In this current scenario, Axel has a planning meeting. The planning meeting happens, Axel has no input. Okay?
Yeah.
In the new scenario, Axel will turn up at his planning meeting. We'll have a Teams plug-in. Axel will plug into the meeting. It'll look like Axel. It will know all about Axel. If the planner asks Axel a question about his daily life, it will plug into personal knowledge base, okay, and retrieve that information. And then when the planner goes, oh, well, that's not reasonable and necessary, or that's not part of, that's not a support list, Axel will be able to go, well, actually, and plug into the NDIS.
Oh my God, Annette, this is genius. Yes. Yeah. Wow.
That's one idea. And then we've got the other one where you get the NDIS call, that private call, and your heart starts racing. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or
and they're surprising you. That's the thing. The thing that I know the whole industry and the whole community is quite irate about this. It's not a scheduled phone call. It's a completely out of the blue. It doesn't allow even often for your support coordinator or for your mother to be there, or whoever in your life that might need or want to be there too. It doesn't allow for any of that. It's basically a surprise attack. And it's highly unethical in my opinion. But I think things like this would, of course, be amazing, wouldn't they, to safeguard against things like that?
Yeah, well, we can have AI assistant answer, and I know providers have got this issue as well of waiting on payments, and suddenly they're talking to a client and they come back and they've had the private call and, oh, sorry, I couldn't get hold of you, and now you've slid down the snake and you've got another 2 months trying to get hold of somebody. Well, what if we have AI answer and actually be able to give the information? I mean, there's so many. We could sit here all afternoon and just spin ideas. But I want to be able to spin those ideas and then go, okay, let's code it. Let's create a proper project management structure here. Let's collaborate. Let's get other participants involved. And that's part of what the Tumour framework is not just developing it, it's actually a collaborative platform. So we can all get together, we can all give input, we can work this through right through the project life cycle. We can call in, human experts as we need them with security, etc. But we've got so much talent out there in participant land. We've got people who know what's wrong with the system, who know how things can be fixed. Let's make it happen.
I agree. I mean, I agree. Yeah. Gosh, it's a case of trying to understand where to start, isn't it? And I think it all depends on who you are, right? So if you are an individual like yourself that is a mother, that's one thing. You've got being a provider, that's another. You've got being a participant directly, that's another. You've got being a support coordinator. There's many specific roles that I suppose the point is that each one of us will have a different burning need according to that perspective of the industry and what we're trying to solve now and every day. And there's also going to be different, like my business is now just a year and a half old and it's really jumped in its growth. And of course, every quarter or every month, there'll be slightly different problems that you need to solve. And yeah, you need to be very dynamic in fixing them, don't you? Like for example, we have AI reviewing CVs. So we get 100 applications on Seek. And I'm using ChatGPT, and I've come up with I've developed my own custom solution myself, and to have it reviewing all of the CVs and it giving a ranking out of 10 and extracting their name and email address and phone number, creating them as a contact in the phone system, summarizing their support worker relevant skills and all that stuff, and it goes, boop, it's done, and it's brilliant. But like you need to be iterative, I suppose. I think that's the point I'm trying to say here. You've got all the big vision of everything we could do. And then you've got the need to be able to be iterative. Like this month, we need to fix this, because it changes all the time in terms of what's burning in your business, Yeah.
All that busy work, all that work, that same work that keeps you tied up, stopping you from doing your business, or, on a participant side, stopping you from living because you're answering emails or collecting evidence. Yeah, we need to, look through, I guess, that process of picking out like which ideas, which ideas shall we tackle first?
Yeah, correct. Like even the GPT example there, like you can give a GPT a particular role. It's like the agentic AI thing, right? You can say this GPT's risk assessments. That's it. That's all it does. Give me inputs. Give me a risk assessment. Whatever it is. So we need to be able to press buttons and things sort of just happen, but they have to know the relevant inputs for each function, right? Whether it be shift notes or care notes or answering the phone, woof, it's amazing. Like even the answering the phone thing. Sorry to interrupt. I think you're so bang on with the ideas. It's brilliant. Like I can imagine, for example, let's say there's a participant that, technically may say yes, contact me via the phone, but they have issues that mean that they're not able to communicate that day, or they're having a bad day and they can't come to it, or they're overwhelmed. Whatever it is, there might be a reason why they're not able to always consistently present that. And I suppose like what you're saying there is, for clients in particular, the button I'd like to be able to press for them is a simple app that's kind of like, maybe it's something like represent me or whatever it is. Like I'm a marketeer sometimes. Like you got to say like, what is it? And they can download it on the phone, and it does that, but it needs to plug into something, doesn't it? And and it could come from lots of different sources. It could be from the shift notes from the particular system that your provider uses, or from your knowledge base of your case, your history of your allied health reports, or you know what I mean? Like it needs to be so easy to use that it actually happens. But it could be amazing. It could like take over the phone call, couldn't it? If it's a private number or something. Yeah.
Have access to your calendar and book in a time to actually talk at a time convenient to you as well.
Well, correct. Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, think about how many gaps there are. Because sorry, I'm going on a rant now, but I'm sure you appreciate the point. Let me do an analogy. Like I help people do access requests for NDIS for the first time, when they haven't applied. And we'll do our best to do that, and then we'll put it in for the application, and then all of a sudden you get a response from the LAC, from the local office, and often it's pretty average or a bit shocking. and you go like, what? You're saying no because of what? You know, like it's incredible. So I'm going to be cynical here for a second. I don't think we can rely on the infrastructure of the LAC model to get these types of great ideas out to them. Ain't going to happen. They are
No.
overloaded. They've got too many caseloads. So the reason I'm drawing the analogy is that I know from personal experience that if I didn't proactively go and meet the person that I'm going to try and help, you know, access, and if I didn't hold their hand metaphorically along the way to go,
Yeah.
that was cool. Let me get in contact with your psychologist. We'll get that DSM-5 report. No worries. I'll put it together in the application form for you. You need someone to help along that journey, and that's often that human factor effort. Even if it was like installing that app on someone's phone and connecting it to the calendar, you need that human, in my opinion, to help get it on the phone. Because how many people aren't good with tech, right? So here's a provocative question for both of us. How do we bridge that gap? Because you and I can go ahead and develop things like this and go, ba-ba, it's done. But that just literally the installation on the phone, or that kind of that thing, where do you think that comes from, bridging that gap?
Oh, now you put me on the spot. Yeah, I don't know. I think, you know, a big part of that is having participants in the design process. Like Axel describes himself as UX consultant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's seriously look at that, and how much input are we taking of people like Axel and other people of various disabilities. How much input are they actually giving into the design of these apps? Maybe that's the key, is just having more people being able to actually give their input rather than being told what is.
I agree. That will give the seamless user experience, right? So that it's as it would remove as many roadblocks as possible. You know, like for example, when you install an app, and it makes a big difference if it's 2 clicks or 10 clicks to get the thing active. You know, I suppose part of by the way, I'm asking myself that question too, because I love your visions. Probably part of the answer surely has to come from providers, right? Because, you know, if you've got 300 people on your books as clients or whatever, maybe it needs to be such a seamless UX that however you get such technology out to the industry, maybe it needs to be as simple as all the provider has to do is say, hey, Bob, hey, Sharon, and we've got this cool new thing. As part of the support worker shift, we're just going to send you one thing. All you have to do is enter your email address, and 2 clicks later, it's on your phone. Maybe that's how we propagate that out to the market via the providers, because that would get a good portion, wouldn't it?
Or here's another idea. We have each user has their own individual user interface to interact with agentic AI, and then we use I can't think of the terminology for it now, but it's basically the agent-to-agent protocol that Google are developing. We have an interface on the one end of every app we're developing, which is like an agentic interface. We have an interface per user, which is specifically around their access requirements, and then the agentic AI is the gap. Agentic AI to agentic AI. Does that make sense?
From a chat interface point of view?
Well, you don't even see that. What I'm talking about.
Okay, so you mean
interactive. So if a user, like Axel's user interface might look like emojis, okay, and it might look like fire signals being picked up off his smartwatch, for example. That's what his user interface might look like. Behind that user interface, or within that, is like a plug, basically, which is like an API, like an interface, which is an agentic interface. Okay. Yes. So when it gets the request from Axel, which might say something like, I want a pizza, right? It will go to the agentic interface and then go, okay, this dude wants a pizza. What do? Oh, we call Domino's and send a thing off to Domino's. Okay. And we say to Domino's, hey, we need a connection here to your API. And then it becomes agent to that. Or we've got, the other software that you're talking about for providers, etc., that's been written, well, we've got an agent to agent connection. So rather than the person trying to get their heads around all these different interfaces that many aren't accessible to them, they just have one accessible interface, and the agentic AI works out what to do. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's a very interesting idea as a concept. The only thing I'd say to that as well is, and this is me just spitballing, is that sometimes, say for example, if I want to send something, to the support worker to show one of our clients, and we go, look, this is the purpose of it. Please explain this and give us a call when you got it. And all you have to do is click here to sign or click here to add in whatever. It needs to often be as simple as brief explanation, click here, do this, right? And then that's what actually follows through. And so I guess my only analogy in business is that I've had my own businesses for about 14 years now. I've probably done about 7 or 8 different brands, and I've done an almost classic ADHD thing on that and go, oh, I do this, and then I can do this, and then I can do this. And and sometimes in the past, I don't make this mistake anymore, but sometimes in the past, I've tried to be so many things under one brand that it's not clear what the brand does. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm only drawing, I'm not saying, I think it's a really fascinating idea you got there, but I'm just wondering about like that brand identification of what is it that, the X app does, what is it, because it might be hard to conceive. If it's an everything app, it might be hard to conceive what it does, if that makes sense, because it's trying to do too many things. Whereas the advantage of this specific app for taking phone calls or whatever, when the NDIS rings, like what's the is it the Ronsil does what it says on the tin? It does what it says on the tin. Do you see what I mean? Like I love both in a way. It's I'm spitballing ideas here. Do you see where I'm going? Like it's interesting because like if you could fast forward 5 years and all of these wonderful functions are built, then what you said, it absolutely makes sense. What would you like? It's this, and it just gets done for you through one interface. It's kind of like Star Trek, where you go, "Hey, computer, beam me down to planet Cleon."
Exactly. You just need you just need the interface to suit the person.
Yes.
Right.
I think it's a great vision. I do.
Rather than trying to get an interface to suit every person, and it never does. It always forgets people like Axel.
You're right, because also the direction of the broader market, even like e-commerce, think about shopping online, it's all about personalization. And personalization is actually incredibly relevant in disability, including reasons of access, which I know you love and specialize in, right? So is it emojis? Is it verbal? Is it visual? Is it, what is it? Is it written? You could adapt, couldn't it, to the person?
Yeah. Anyway, it's just a thought train as we're chugging along on this journey. But yeah, it's an interesting one. You're going to have me thinking about that now.
It is. I mean, like, I think that everything that you're describing is the way that the world is going, even outside of the NDIS. I think AI call centers, having big knowledge bases, having human-like agents and multi-agent things happening, that's exactly the direction that the world is going. And of course, using large language models to analyze huge amounts of data is exactly where it's going. If people haven't done that already in the business, then it's time to catch up. Otherwise, you get left behind, in my opinion. That's how, because people talk about, how do you survive as a provider? My margins are slim, I'm not making profit, I'm going to go under. That's all very well and true. And I have a lot of sympathy for that because it's very real. But I think that everything we're talking about, that's part of the answer.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. It's all about efficiency and, sharing resources and cooperative type movements. And with that, comes the profitability and the improved service all in one, and the safety.
Correct.
And the compliance, and it's like, to me, it's like, the Airbnb of disability. There's all these little organizations out there, and they're all trying to be compliant and produce a good service, and they're all wrapped up, doing admin. It's like, let's get together and let's just create one platform where we need it and customize what you need to do. And
yeah, I agree.
It's very exciting.
It is. Amazing. Well, I mean, look at that. I think you and I could go for hours.
I reckon we could.
Yeah, it's if you kind of, let me ask you one final question. Like, if you fast forward 5 years, whether it be in Axel's life, in AxAI, your company, or through DXX, or all of the above, if you fast forward 5 years, what kinds of changes are you looking for at the industry level of the NDIS? What's your vision and hopes for the future through these types of, strategies?
I'm looking and hoping for far less abuse and neglect.
Yeah.
People like Axel to have a voice, and more of all the things we were promised, the choice and control, and the better life, and more community and economic participation, all enabled through technology, because it's there, it's available now, and life can be a lot better. We can, there is, like we just discussed, there's ways to improve profits with AI. There's also ways to improve people's quality of life and improve outcomes. And I just, there's been a lot of really sad stories, and real, and I've been through my own. Axel and I have, but I'd like to leave that shit behind, man. I'd like to be sitting there going, okay, well, you know what? There's problems here. There's big problems. Let's just focus on the solution. We've got all the tools to make it happen. Let's do it. And I'd like to be sitting there going, Jesus, like, look at what we did. Look how much better things are. And it was all driven by participants. Isn't that funny? That would be great.
I love that vision. And just to kind of really back up that vision and support it, my analogy would be, think about the Industrial Revolution and all of the safety issues that came from that. You had children working and the people dying on the weekends, getting sucked into the mill. And, what eventuated from that was eventually legislation catches up to go, oh, we should probably have some safety standards. And then if you fast forward to Henry Ford and, mass production, that's part of the introduction of the weekend and all this kind of stuff. So my point is that as technology in one way or another accelerates, I think what always happens as a society is that you've got providers, you've got technologists, you've got innovators like us that go, let's just do it this way. And then we go ahead and we do it. And eventually the government catches up and goes, oh yeah, that's a really good idea, right? We should put some frameworks or some legislation around that. And maybe we'll integrate a bloody booking system for when the NDIA calls someone. Bloody hell, that's a good idea. It's pretty bloody basic. But I reckon the way we lead the way is literally by leading the bloody way. And then letting the commission catch up, and they'll go, shit, that was a really good bloody idea. And eventually we'll get in sync and it will be a better world.
Absolutely.
It's
great to catch up with you, Chris.
Likewise. I should let
we
you go.
Finally did it. There's been a few bumps getting here, but we finally did it. And Axel's seeming a lot better today, so I'm a very happy mum.
Good. Glad to hear that. Well, listen, Annette Andersen from AxAI, wonderful Axel as well. Thank you so much for being part of the journey. And we'll put links to the website for both AxAI and also DSX in the show notes. So Annette Andersen, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care, everyone. All the best. Subscribe, like, share, all of that fun stuff. Catch you soon.